Hi you first words of the day are hard. Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for February 23rd through 29th. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 2 books. That's not entirely correct, but we'll talk about that more when we come to the shows and movies portion of the video. First this week I finished The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. This is a book that I was predisposed to like because I love bookish books, I love books about people who love books, I love books about books. It was something I knew that I was going to enjoy, which is why I read it, because there's actually a space on the Valentine's bingo board for read something in your comfort zone, and I figured this fit the bill. So this book is obviously about Nina Hill. She works in a bookstore. She has various different social things that she does, such as go to these trivia nights that she's really passionate about because she loves trivia. But she's been kind of taking a break from dating because it was playing up her anxiety and she wasn't really enjoying it, and she would really just rather go home and hang out on the couch with a book and her cat Phil. However, a bunch of things happen all at once. A lawyer comes into her place of work to talk to her. I'm not going to tell you about what. There's also a wonder if the store is making enough money to stay open, and then there's also this cute guy on a different quiz team. It's a lot of changes all at once, especially when you're introverted and especially when you have anxiety. What I really liked about this one is it was incredibly funny. She would go on these little tangents either out loud to other characters or in her head about these various different trivia things, or just how she figured she was being perceived because she was being kind of a weirdo, and that's very relatable to me. I also really liked little details like the names of the quiz team, such as You're a Quizzard Harry and Bookum Dano. Perfect. And all in all, if you like bookish books, you're going to like this one. On to something completely different, I also read War Girls. This is the first in what I think is going to be a trilogy, but it just came out last year, so there aren't any other books out yet. This book is set in the 2170s in Nigeria in the midst of a civil war and follows mainly children who are being used as soldiers. This book was incredibly difficult to read, not because it was poorly written or because it was uninteresting, but because of the aspects of war that were in it. And yet I felt that it's something that I had to read because we don't learn a lot of history of places that aren't North America or Europe in the North American educational system. And from my understanding, some of this futuristic plot is based in actual civil wars from the area. This book focuses specifically on 2 sisters who are broken apart, and many things happen over the course of this book, so I don't want to give anything away. But know going into it that at some points it'll feel like a Marvel movie, and some points it will feel absolutely devastating, even more than Marvel movies are, because I know they can be. It's a whole different level of devastation because these are literal children being used as weapons. And that's hard. I'm afraid by the way that I've been speaking about it that you're going to think that I didn't like it. I did enjoy it as much as one can when reading about literal children being used as weapons. It was well written, it was well paced, I really liked the dual perspectives. However, it's hard to read. On to what I watched this week. I watched about an episode and a half of The Expanse. We're in the 3rd season still, just very near the beginning of it, and characters are meeting for the first time, which is something that I enjoy. But again, Chad and I seem to have a short attention span when it comes to the show, and we end up looking up things or talking about things or having to remind each other about things within the show itself. And on the topic of things that I've watched at Chad's but that I don't specifically want to put into the wrap-up, we did rewatch a few episodes of The Good Place because his roommate was playing it on the TV and we just sat down and watched it, but I don't feel like I have anything specific to say about it besides I really need to watch the 4th season. Additionally, we sort of watched a movie, which was Man Up, which is a movie that I have been avoiding because I hate the title, but I like Simon Pegg. So we were sort of watching this one in that it was playing, but we were mostly talking to each other and talking over it, and it's the type of movie that I would have to watch again to really get all of the things, although I did notice some interesting things happening in it. And you know, I love a meet cute that starts with a book, and this had that, so there's that. Chad yesterday was also playing a lot of episodes of Arrested Development, but neither of us were really paying attention. We both weren't feeling well, so it was just kind of like something to be on in the background, and I would flip between sort of paying attention to that and watching YouTube videos and that type of thing. So my attention span has not been very focused, which is why I don't really want to talk in depth about all of the things I've technically watched. Something I did pay attention to was the 3rd episode of the 40th season of Survivor. I am mad about how it ended, and that's basically all I want to say. When I'm talking about older seasons of Survivor, I feel like I can talk a little bit more fluidly about them and be like, oh yeah, I hated when this happened. But this is brand new, and I know there's at least one person that watches these videos that might not be caught up on this season, but for that one person. I hated who went to exile, and I hope that person maybe comes back. That would be cool. The final show that I watched and was actually paying attention to was 5 more episodes of The World According to Jeff Goldblum. We watched episodes 2 through 6. So all the way from ice cream to denim to tattoos to gaming, and there was at least one more episode in there and I can't think of it right now. Again, the things I really love about this show are the editing and the fact that it just seems so absolutely random at times, and because it is such a high budget thing, they can do things like go and talk to Ben and Jerry from Ben and Jerry's when they're talking about ice cream. And then obviously Jeff Goldblum is just a delight to watch because he's just so excited and passionate about everything, and it's great. On to the books I listened to this week, the first one being Once and Future by Amy Rose Capetta and Cory McCarthy. This is a retelling of King Arthur set in space that also has magic, so it is a space fantasy. I don't know that I've ever read one before. I'm sure they exist. I think this is my first one, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. This has actually been on my TBR for ages. I've been meaning to get around to it because I knew it was a gender-bent queer King Arthur in space story, and all of those things together really intrigued me. But for one reason or another, I just hadn't gotten around to it until I realized that they are actually releasing a sequel, and I thought it was a standalone, so I was like, okay, I guess it's time to actually read it so that I can also read the sequel. In this book, Ari is the 42nd reincarnation of King Arthur, and every time there is a new cycle, that King Arthur character, who has always been a guy up until this point, has the same characters from the Knights of the Round Table and all of the Arthurian legends around them already in their life when they find Excalibur, and when they find Excalibur, which basically actually finds them, Merlin wakes up and comes to join them. Merlin also has a curse on him, which means he's aging backwards, so at this point he is about 17 years old, about the same age as the protagonist and her group of friends. I love this because it was incredibly queer. I really loved all of these characters. There were some things that happened that had me actually shocked, and I really need to know what's going to happen in the sequel, having just finished this one. The other book I listened to was The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. This is a book I put on hold based solely on the title because who doesn't love a book that straight out just says the word fuck on the cover? Like me, you might be able to deduce based on the title that this is probably a self-help book, which is what it was. This isn't about not giving any fucks whatsoever, but rather being more specific about to whom and where you put your fucks. So it's all about figuring out what actually matters to you in life and caring about that, and giving no fucks to things that are outside of your control or don't actually affect your values. It was a fun read. It was good to hear somebody swearing in an audiobook. The stories that he used to prove his points from his personal life I really enjoyed. It's all things I think I've heard before, but I think I liked it in this format. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment, just leave me an emoji so I know that you are here. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!